Hello and welcome to another quilting video. I'm Olivia and this video is going through the making of this patchwork quilt. We're going to talk about changing the plan you had for a quilt while you're making it, fussy cutting fabric, hand quilting, and a lot more, so it's going to be fun. Okay, let this be a lesson in why we make test blocks before we go ahead and make the whole quilt's worth of blocks when we're starting something new. So I've had these fabrics for a while, I've had a pattern designed for a while, and I sat down yesterday to start working and I didn't like the design. So I made a whole new one, basically. The only thing that's really the same from my old plan is this diagonal line going through here. I cut a bunch of the fabrics I had picked out, all of the patterns actually, and I stuck with the solids. And I don't really know what I was thinking because this green looks terrible. It made sense when I was going to include this fabric. Having this pattern and then incorporating the solid green, that would make sense. Taking this out and having this green with these other colors just is not what I want. So I'm really happy with this block. I'm happy with the design of this block. I'm going to take out the green and bring in this. I think this is going to be much better for a few reasons. It's going to bring together the light and the dark blue. It's going to bring in the gold from this yellow. And it's got the white background. So at the moment, this one's very white, this one's very colored. So by putting the white background in these green spots, I think it's gonna make the two different blocks blend together a little bit nicer. So I have my plan. I know what my blocks are supposed to look like. I know what fabric I'm gonna use for each spot. Now I can just slowly start piecing and get this quilt made. The part that I'm most excited about is for this fabric. I'm going to fussy cut out some of the flowers and then manually place them into these white blocks. And I think it's going to really just make this quilt a little more special. It's very plain at the moment and I love a scrappy quilt, so because I'm looking forward to that part the most, I'm not going to do it first. I'm going to start with these little square and a square block because they're pretty small and I think they're going to be the most fiddly and tricky part. So I want to get those out the way, then this part can come later. Bit of a love-hate relationship with these tiny blocks. I love how they look, but they're so small and you can't really strip piece these, so you have to do each one individually and it's a little fiddly, so that's why I wanted to get these out of the way first. The rest of the units I had to piece were basically plain squares or were able to be done with strip piecing, so they came together much faster. The only exception to that, of course, was those flowers that I had to be individually pieced, but we'll get to those in a moment. quite a bit of time cutting all of these squares out of this fabric. So I was kind of picking and choosing, like I cut out some of these, I didn't take any of this or this or this. So this wasn't the easiest part of this quilt so far, just because I was trying to, or A, cut accurately. These all need to be the same shape and straight, obviously. Also, I was trying to be aware that the 1/4 inch around here is going to be lost in the seam allowance. So like, for example, these ones, I was trying to make sure that the whole circle will be still visible after that seam allowance is taken. The other thing was I was trying not to cut too far from the edge, if this makes sense. So like I've cut out whatever was here, and I was trying to stop cutting as quick as I could so that this part around here is still going to be usable later when I want to use the rest of this fabric. And then the other thing was I'm trying to create as little waste as possible. Obviously, I don't want to waste the fabric, but I have this little patch of scraps, so I'm going to need to figure out what to do with these later. But anyway, here are all my pieces. We've got the daffodils, one rose, the little blue flower, the circle with little flowers, and one more rose. I think this is a fun little group of pieces to add in. They go well with the color scheme I'm going for, I think. These ones especially, obviously, the blue and yellow. These ones have pink and this kind of brown sort of color. That's not anywhere else, but that's fine because the roses are more important than the colors for those. Alright, I've got these all pressed, and you can see now how I've split everything up a bit. So I've got some daffodils on the right, some on the left, and there's going to be a good mix. I'm not actually going to combine these. It's going to be one blue, one flower, and then another blue, and this one's just going to be white. So that's what this pile of chain piecing's for. So now what I'm going to do is split these up in half again, so that we've got half on the top, half on the bottom. Then I'm going to go back, finish the chain piecing, so these can all go together. So I didn't explain this too well at the time, but the point of all of this organization is so the flowers are somewhat evenly spread around the quilt top. Like, I'm sure nobody else looking at the finished quilt would notice if, for example, all of the daffodils were on the top right of their little 4 patch, but I would. So doing this ensured I had daffodils on the top and the bottom, and on the left and the right. Small thing, but it felt really important at the time. Somewhere in my move recently, I lost a bit of this footage putting the blocks together, but to be honest, there really wasn't much to say about it. All of the individual units came together easily, and then it was just a matter of alternating the 2 different blocks to create the quilt top. So then once the backing was pieced and everything was basted, the next involved part of making this quilt was the quilting. Quick quilting update here. I've started to go along these diagonal blue lines and I love it. However, problem. My quilting plan was mainly made through aesthetics. I wasn't really thinking about more than that. What I wanted was these lines diagonally done in the blue thread, and then I was going to use this wool and do a little puff in each of these centers of each second block here. The problem, I wasn't thinking about the distance. My batting inside here can be up to 10 inches apart. And as you can see here, we're right on 11 inches. So I know adding this in makes it, what, 5 inches. But I'm a little iffy using just that one hand tie in the middle. I don't know if it's gonna be enough, but I think I'm gonna need this white thread as well. And I'm trying to decide now if I do the exact same diagonals through the centers of these blocks, or maybe I do like a square that way, like a diamond. I'm not sure. I would still use the wool and do the little puffy ties in the middles, but I think it needs a second layer. I think the best option is probably to echo the blue with the white here. I'm really just worried about the time. I need to get this in the post. I mean, it should already be in the post. I'm on a deadline here, so I'm gonna keep going. I'll keep you updated. I decided not to add any hand quilting with the white thread only because of time. I finished off the blue diagonal quilting and then jumped ahead to bind the quilt. I really liked lately doing a first pass at the quilting and then binding and coming back to finish off the quilting when I'm hand quilting, not for machine quilting. So while I didn't do the white hand quilted lines I was thinking about, I did end up doing more ties per block. Instead of just one in the middle like I was talking about before, I did 4. One in each of those yellow squares around the middle of each block. And I think that was a good middle ground. I wasn't sure how they would wash up, so initially I left the wool pretty long, and then after the quilt went through the wash and everything had crinkled up, I trimmed those ties down. And I really like how it turned out. The pattern is pretty traditional, so I think the ties fit in nicely. Ideally, I would have added more quilting, but this was a birthday present for when my Nana turned 80, and I was really trying to finish it in time to send home for that. But of course, I took an evening to take it out for some photos, and I think this quilt turned out so well. I think it's about 60 by 80 inches-ish. I was having a little trouble holding it up straight, but I think you can see it well. And overall, I'm really happy with the design we ended up with. I like the blue and the yellow and the white together. I really like how most of it is just the same, like standard 2 blocks across the quilt top, but then those little flowers that I snuck in there make it a little more fun with like just a touch of scrappiness. So that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.